What was that? The camera? I knew that was gonna happen.
Hi, I'm Ryan at Hubbard's Handmade, and today I'm gonna make these enclosed garage shelf cabinets. To start this project, my wife Shelly and I went to the closest home store and bought way more 2x4s than we thought we were going to need. But really, when can you have too many 2x4s? We used a stud finder, measuring tape, and level to find the studs and mark them in the wall so our horizontal support beams would be secure. The wall that we were using was just over 14 feet long, so we used an 8-foot 2x4 and cut another section about 6 feet. We repeated this process for 3 different shelf heights. We lined up the vertical support beams and cut and marked each one individually. They were all different because of the slope of the garage. We then screwed together all of the horizontal support pieces on the other side. First we used pocket hole screws to join these long boards together, but then went back later and added these metal brackets to make everything more secure. It was at about this point when we realized we'd made a mistake and run into a problem. I didn't account for the curve of the garage door rail. This is what we ended up doing with the tall open section, and up here at the top where the front wouldn't fit because of the garage door rail, I cut the board back, lowered down the support, and I'm going to box this area in when I enclose everything.
Okay, and push it that way, right? Mm-hmm. Push this. Mm-hmm. And this.
Using the miter saw was obviously not one of my wife's favorite things to do, so I proceeded to cut a whole bunch of cross-support shelf pieces, and they were obliging enough to move themselves into place. Maybe the miter saw was more intimidating than I realized, because after this point my wife didn't help me very much anymore, but my son Luke was kind enough to come out and help me. Which brings us to our sponsor for this video, Luke, the offspring of the future, here today. Do you find yourself making stupid mistakes like this when you work by yourself? Do you find you can't accomplish nearly as much when you work alone? You need to get yourself a son. Don't continue to go it alone like an idiot. You need to get yourself a son. We're calling this new model Luke. Why, with father and son working side by side, you'll accomplish 222% more. He's even willing to crawl into places you can't go yourself. Just give him directions and he's off to the races. So quit trying to do it all yourself like a Sasquatch. Get yourself a son and you'll be set. All joking aside, I really appreciate the help from my son Luke and my wife on this project. They helped things go a lot faster. Because of the way that I oriented the vertical support pieces long ways, I added these shelf extensions to bring everything flush with the outside. Normally this is where most garage shelf projects end, but like I said, I'm going to enclose all of these, and the reason for that is because my wife said she's tired of the sawdust ending up on all the storage things we have in the garage. And after seeing this clip, I said, "What sawdust?" Yes, woodworking can be a messy hobby. The cabinet hinges that I bought came with this marking jig. So I'm lining it up square with the side of the door, marking my holes, and then taking that over to the drill press and drilling out the place where the hinge is going to go. Then I'm using my speed square again to make sure that the hinge is square with the sides of the door before drilling my holes with this self-centering bit. Then I can drive my screws knowing that everything is squared and properly lined up before taking the door to fit into place. The cabinet hinges also came with a guide for taking the hinges apart to line everything up, but I didn't mess with any of that. I just clamped the door into place and drove my screws. Then it was easy to go back later and adjust everything with the adjustment screw. Then, using the same piece of plywood to make sure that the grain lines up, I cut my top door to size, and after attaching the hinges, I used this shim to line everything up and attach the door in the same way. Finally, one more family visitor came to see me in the shop, our lucky black cat, Olive. I had to cut a couple of pieces down on the table saw to enclose the ends and then tack them into place. Because you're pretty much never going to see the top, I just used the scrap pieces that were too short for anything else and enclosed the top. Oh yeah, and when Luke's not around, somebody has to do the dangerous climbing. Okay, here's my method for putting all of my knobs in the same place. I'm using my Swanson plastic speed square and just setting a level in there, making this square, coming down just to touch the surface, just so that it's the same. It doesn't really matter where it is, but this will make them all the same. And then I'm just using this 3.5-inch marker, making a mark, flip it around, do the same thing. Got my screw and my knob over there. Throughout the video, you probably noticed the gap in between all of the doors. And the reason for that is because I ordered the wrong hinges. The doors are supposed to sit inside of the 4-foot openings. Instead, they were a little too short. I knew that I was going to be adding molding to all of the doors and that I would be able to cover that gap, so I just left it the way that it is. Because this is just a shop project, I'm okay with that. Because I knew that this is probably going to take a lot of abuse in the shop, I added a lot of pin nails to the molding. I would tack it in place with a couple of pins on the outside and then open the door and add a whole bunch of pin nails. I'm not really even sure how many I went through, but it was hundreds and hundreds. And at this point, I am basically done. You can see that those gaps were nicely covered, and I'm really happy with the way that everything came out. I've got tons of room for storage, and it will keep the sawdust off of everything that we put in there. Thanks so much for watching my video. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more, and I will see you next time. It's in there really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to pull it out, not up. Oops.
You're gonna have to edit that part
I have
out.
to edit that. It was working fine until you're holding the camera.
This is gonna go in the bloopers reel, right?
Dang it, dang it, dang it.